Replace your COPR IMM 1000 Record of Landing. What is a verification of status document? When any person comes to Canada for the first time as an immigrant, known as landing, they are given a paper document as proof of their immediate status, known as a record of landing, or confirmation of permanent residence, depending on when the document was issued. The Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada IRCC form number for this document is IMM 1000 or IMM 5292-IMM 5688 respectively. In the past, this document could be replaced with an original or certified true copy if it was lost. However, as of August 27, 2012, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada now issues what is known as a verification of status document. It has all of the same information, but takes much less time to be issued. If you have lost your original or the certified true copy of your IMM 1000, you may apply for a verification of status document as a replacement for proof of when you immigrated to Canada. If you do not have proof of when you arrived in Canada, you may be denied government benefits, such as old age pension, regardless of how long you have been a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. If you need proof of when you first entered Canada to live, work or study, you can apply to obtain a verification of status document. Even people who were Canadian citizens at the time of entry, or people who never became permanent residents, can obtain this document under most circumstances. Getting your VOS urgently for your pension. In order to receive an old age pension from the Government of Canada, you must have worked inside Canada for 10 years. To prove that you have met this requirement, you must provide your IMM 1000 or a verification of status to Service Canada with your pension application if you are not born in Canada. If you've been advised by Service Canada that your pension application will not be processed until you provide a copy of this document, you can request urgent processing from IRCC. To get urgent processing, you must include a copy of a letter from Service Canada advising that your application for a pension will be closed or rejected within a certain time frame if a copy of your IMM 1000 is not provided. If your proof of urgency is accepted, your verification of status should be issued within 4 to 8 weeks. The regular processing time for a replacement record of landing is 6 months. Who can get a replacement record of landing IMM 1000 verification of status document? Almost any person who has ever entered Canada can apply for a verification of status document. If you landed in Canada as a permanent resident, you can get the VOS to replace your record of landing, IMM 1000 COPR document. Any of these people can apply for the replacement of their status document in Canada. Current or former permanent residents of Canada. Canadian citizens born outside Canada who eventually entered Canada to live. Current or former temporary workers in Canada, work permit holders. Current or former temporary students in Canada, student permit holders. Current or former visitors to Canada, visitor visa holders. You can apply to replace your COPR or IMM 1000 from within Canada or from any other country in the world, even if you no longer live in Canada. Previously, applications made from outside Canada needed to be sent to the nearest Canadian consulate, but now all applications should be made to IRCC Operations Support Centre in Ottawa. Why do you need your record of landing, IMM 1000? The most common reason people need their record of landing document is to give it to Service Canada to get old age pension. You must demonstrate that you worked in Canada for a minimum of 10 years in order to apply for the old age pension. This is why people born in Canada need to provide a copy of their record of landing with their old age pension application. The record of landing is also a supporting document needed for a PR card renewal or grant of Canadian citizenship application. If you do not have a PR card, you must have a copy of your record of landing to apply for a Canadian citizenship. Also, if you are applying for a PR card, the record of landing is the only secondary ID document you can use for an applicant who is under 16 years old, because they do not have a driver's license, university ID, or notice of assessment tax documents. If you are returning to Canada from abroad through the land border crossing in the United States in a private vehicle, you can also present your record of landing to prove your permanent resident status in Canada if you do not have your PR card. This means you don't have to go to the Canadian Embassy to get a travel document just to return to Canada. What documents do you need to get your verification of status? To apply for a replacement of your IMM 1000, you need copies of the following supporting documents. Copy of the ID page of the passport you used at the time of landing in Canada, or copy of the ID page of your current passport and copy of your birth certificate with translation documents if the document is not in French or English, and copy of your marriage certificate if applicable, and copy of your Canadian citizenship certificate if applicable, or your PR card if applicable. If you are missing one or two of these documents, IRCC will usually still process your application. However, the reasons the documents are missing needs to be explained. You can also substitute other documents which are not on the list for your application to be processed. Applying for a verification of status for someone who is deceased. Frequently, people will apply for the IMM 1000 of a parent or other family member who has died in order to obtain a passport or citizenship from another country from that parent. In order to get a replacement of the record of landing for someone who has passed away, you must be the executor of their estate with documentation to demonstrate this if the person has been deceased for fewer than 20 years. After a person has been deceased for 20 years, their record of landing becomes public record, and any person may apply for this document. How to sign and validate your IRCC forms. One of the biggest hurdles facing both temporary and permanent immigrants to immigration. Refugees and Citizenship Canada's online system, which can be confusing for anyone who's never used it before, and that is most people. In this video, we're going to answer two very common questions many people have regarding the online system. How to sign the forms, how to validate the forms. Before the internet, immigration forms were all submitted by mail. The signature box on the forms could be thought of as a relic of that era. However, many, if not most, immigration forms must still be submitted by mail, including all permanent residence applications. In fact, it's still a relative luxury to be able to submit forms online, because the government has only recently caught up with the private sector in terms of providing service online. Here is a list of applications you must file online. ETAs to visit Canada without a visa. Express entry applications for permanent residents. Here is a list of applications you may be able to submit online, depending upon your country of residence and nationality. Temporary Resident Visa, TRV, aka a visitor visa, including extensions, applications for visitor records, and changing your status to student or worker. Study permit, including extensions, applications for records, and changing your status to visitor or worker. Work permit, including extensions, applications for records, and changing your status to visitor or student. So how do you know if you can submit your visitor visa, study permit or work permit application online? First, you need to complete the Come to Canada online questionnaire. Though it may feel like it, this isn't actually the application. This questionnaire just evaluates whether or not you're eligible for applying online, and whether or not you're eligible to stay in Canada as a visitor, student or worker at all. The questionnaire is mandatory to complete if you are interested in applying online, because it generates a personal checklist code, which you will need to use the online submission process. Once you have your checklist code, you can apply online for your TRV, study or work permit. If you do not get a personal checklist code from the questionnaire, you must submit a paper application to the nearest VAC. Signing forms on cic.gc.ca that are submitted online. In order to submit any application form online to IRCC, you obviously need to sign it. But though it is possible to sign many PDFs nowadays, IRCC hasn't quite caught up to that standard yet. Though based on the constant changes to this site, they are moving in this direction, and we may see that any day. So your signature is taken another way when you create a profile on cic.gc.ca or GC key on any federal government website. You must both create a profile and agree to the terms and conditions. This is a roundabout way of taking your consent. The creation of the profile and agreeing to the various steps of the process is taken as a proxy for your signature. So you don't need to worry about signing these forms. You don't have to print them off, sign and scan them or anything like that. You can just submit them when they are complete. Provided you qualify and you have been honest on your application, you should get your visa or permit much faster than if you submitted a paper application. Validating IRCC forms. Even if you're mailing your application to an IRCC office in Canada, some of your forms will have to be validated, which means they cannot be printed until they are complete. Which forms have to be validated? Well, the general rule is that application forms for any immigration application need to be validated, whereas some of the supporting documentation forms do not have to be validated. For example, for an application for a work permit made outside of Canada, application IMM 1295 must be validated. Schedule 1, application for temporary residence visa, form IMM 5257 Schedule 1, if applicable, must be validated. Family Information Form IMM 5645 does not have to be validated. Statutory Declaration of Common Law Union Form IMM 5409, if applicable, does not have to be validated, but obviously must be notarized. Use of a representative form IMM 5476 does not have to be validated. Document checklist form IMM 5488 does not have to be validated. This pattern is generally true for most, if not all, immigration applications submitted to IRCC. So how do you validate? You press the button on the top of the form, but somehow it always seems to go wrong. If validating is not working, check the following information. Answer all mandatory questions. The form must be complete. There cannot be any missing information. That's the first thing that a lot of people get stuck on. Your PDF program should prompt you when printing the form, if applicable, what sections you missed. But the first thing you should check, if you cannot validate the form, is whether or not you've completed all the mandatory fields. This includes checkboxes. Sometimes the checkboxes aren't marked clearly or appear almost hidden between the fields where you enter text. But if the checkboxes are for a mandatory question and you haven't filled them out, you won't be able to validate your form. Also, you cannot backdate the date fields. For example, if you're completing a TRV application, you cannot make the date earlier than the day you're completing the form. If you try to do that, you will not be able to validate the form. Wrong PDF reader. If you still cannot validate the form, even though your information is correct, you should make sure that you're using an up-to-date version of Adobe Reader or Acrobat. The program should have warned you it wasn't up to date when you first opened the form, but we all ignore so many of these error messages. It's easy to miss one that matters. You shouldn't even be able to see the form if you're using an older version than Reader X. Adobe Reader updates multiple times a year, so it's quite possible you don't have the latest version, especially if you haven't allowed automatic updates. Fortunately, Reader is easy to update. If you're using another PDF reader, you should consult the manufacturer's website for the latest version. We recommend using Adobe Reader for all IRCC documents. But if you love your PDF reader, you can always consult an online help forum for your program of choice. JavaScript. The other major hurdle for validating IRCC forms is your JavaScript settings. JavaScript is basically code that allows these forms to function the way they do. If your JavaScript is turned off, you won't be able to validate your forms, even if you have the latest version of Reader and you have completed the form properly. To turn on JavaScript in the current version of Reader DC, click on the Edit menu and select Preferences. Then select JavaScript from the side menu and ensure it's enabled. Note, these screenshots are from Reader 11, but the process is exactly the same as Reader DC. If you still can't validate your form, you may want to contact IRCC directly, or see if you can use a friend's computer and see if it works better on their system. Remember, if you do have to print your application, make sure the barcode is clear when your validated documents print off. Good luck with your application.